What if there was a simple strategy that could alter how you jungle that suits the meta, that allows you to climb quickly by winning a whole bunch of games in a row and fixing your hard-stuck nature? Well, lucky for you, after one coaching session with someone on my Discord, we were able to identify a playstyle and game plan that he can leverage every single game in order to 1. Remove the enemy jungler, 2. Remove laners from contention of existence, and 3. Get himself juiced such that the mid game is the late game. Only won like 20 games and stopped ping-ponging his wins and losses. Essentially, we're going to take this platinum-stuck guy, make him a diamond guy, and basically use his example to show you how anyone can get diamond by doing these simple 3 things. No yo-yo gaming anymore. Well, provided he stays consistently applying these principles, and if you also want to avoid that and climb faster than 70% of League of Legends players and get to gold, diamond, and master tier about 2 years faster than everybody else, have a look at Virkayu.gg through the link in the description below and find your best bespoke jungle coaching package. Additionally, I also have very in-depth jungle courses, with the silver one launching this Friday with the others soon to follow, as well as the free jungle improvement PDF to help you carry, win, and climb and learn how to Vardavir yourself. Click the link below to join me on Virkayu.gg, a jungler's learning paradise. So let's jump straight into exactly what works well for him. Now, if you pay attention to my shorts, you will know that I showed you a beautiful new level 3 clear thanks to the experience buffs that Riot just gave us last week that shows we can go red wolves blue or blue wolves red to get level 3. This means we don't have to fight the final boss Grump to actually get into the next phase of the map to be present when the enemy jungler is most likely going to be doing the same thing. However, this wasn't available when we did our coaching session, so we were talking explicitly about still doing 3 camp ganks, 3 camp invades, looking to punish enemy junglers who aren't aware of the meta or who in your lower and mid MMR games are really struggling to find out how to play aggressively in a good way, in a systematic, habitual way. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video, no matter what 3 camp clear you do. Now, before I show you exactly how to use this new and beautiful clear in the current meta, let's look at how the core example worked from a coaching perspective. So basically, we're looking at leveraging a level 3 camp clear into either an invade or your typical bottom lane gank. Now, in this particular case, we know we're against a Diana. We're going to start on the bottom side here, and the nice thing about this particular clear is if she also started on the top side, we can just gank bottom lane very quickly before the Diana can. Our bottom lane resets, we go top side, we lose nothing. If the Diana starts on the bottom side, then what we can do here is match her cadence, but instead of stopping to do Raptors, instead of stopping to do red, what do? We know Diana is gonna most likely full clear up. If we were against a champion who would want to gank bottom lane, your typical meta junglers, then we wouldn't do this clear, we would simply go red, wolves, blue, or red, raptors, grump, match their tempo, counter gank them, or gank before them. And of course, if they don't gank, then we still get the gank off, they go topside, there's nothing for them to counter jungle. With that in mind, what do we do here? While we move into the jungle, we hit the planter invader and we get the cheese off. Now we could look to stay, we could look to take the blue, we could look to take the grump, but I would only do that if the mid and the top lane are pushing and their laners have no chance of actually rotating. Because we're not full HP, because we have our Eon cooldown, it's better just to kind of leave. And this is the next phase of our game plan. And you will see that applied to this game and our second example using the wolf camp clear. We decide, hey, no cry, why don't we just go to the top side and see if we can get a gank off with the top laners fighting. That doesn't work, so now we can reward ourselves with camps, Krugs, Raptors. Don't do the red. Ward the red, but don't do it. Why? Because we have her red. There's no reason to take it when we're not going to maximize the duration of the buff. Also, we want to make sure we get into the river there, knowing that the top scuttle is the thing we want to secure. At the same time, where was the Diana going to go after we killed her? 99%, most players, 99% of MMRs, they're going to be obsessed with getting their blue, grump, and wolves before they think about that delayed scuttle. That means we get to use the outside and roll, taking the thing furthest away from our jungle before they get there, because they weren't thinking about using the outside and roll. And what is the whole tenet that is governing his exact game planning at this point? 3 camp action onto the map either through invades, ganks, or counter ganks. 2, we are then using jungle flow and eyes up jungling to ensure we can actually execute it. What does that mean for those who don't understand? That means before we fall back to something, we always ask ourselves a very simple question. Hey, can I gank this lane before I go to my Krugs? Yes or no? If no, I go to the Krugs. Hey, can I gank mid lane before I do Raptors? No? Alright, I'm gonna do the Raptors and then I'll gank mid lane. Before we go back to a quadrant, before we fall back to farming, before we look to kind of go back to base, we're always asking ourselves, what is the proactive thing I can do on the map in this moment that I couldn't otherwise do if I left the situation and something might change? He's executing the flow beautifully from one thing to the next. Now, of course, you're noticing he did the top scuttle, and then he says, hey, I'm going to deny you the bottom scuttle as well, and I've warded my red if you think, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take that. Of course, they're not really going to think about that in most MMRs unless you get huge leads. And the difference between his coin flipping losing days and the new phase he has now that's just allowed him to win 20 games, Once he takes a bottom scuttle, instead of going back to the Gromp and the wolves by default, he says, can I gank bottom lane first and then go back to my quadrant? The answer is a resounding, yes you can, mighty squid. Take your manta ray tail, kill the ADC, and then thrust yourself into the Gromp. Of course, it's worth noting that Diana had returned the fisting advantage into the top lane gank, which of course is what she should do, and then obviously goes mid lane, gets a gank and dies. But that's absolutely fine for us because we have no deaths. She has 2 deaths, and from this we have set up ourselves for better sequencing, better level spike advantage, and we should get 6 first, which means the queen's true form will reveal herself. So here's a little bit of coaching advice we could have done. We know that the Krugs and the Raptors are going to spawn a little bit delayed from the bottom side quadrant because obviously we took them much later. But we have the timer because we did them. If we did the Gromp and the Wolves, then went back to base, our Krugs Red Raptors will be available for a good sequence, and then we could cut down and gank the bottom lane again. The advanced way of thinking here that I hope he was thinking about was, listen, I know that Diana died, she came from the top side, her bottom camps are up, she's going to respawn and go there, why don't I just go back to base, take my red, cut down and shatter and protect my bottom lane from her gankings. I am Bel'Veth, I'm snowballing, and I now have Noon Quiver. And I really like that that's what he was thinking about and it executed it perfectly. He doesn't just default to say, hey listen, coach said do Gromp, Wolves, that go back to base and have good sequencing. He thought, listen, Diana's going to be there, if I waste my time doing this quadrant, I'm not going to have a time to reset, and then I'm going to have to come straight back down to the bottom lane anyway. I might as well go back to base, spend a little bit of time taking their red, gank the bottom lane before she's able to show up, then I can fall back to my blue side, and obviously my Raptors and Krugs will be up there, but this will be a better way of allowing my bottom lane to straight up snowball and win and give the Diana basically nothing else to do other than farm. And so I give him an S+ for that jungle decision making. Not always a fan of taking something one side and moving all the way to the other side, but I am a fan of taking things and moving to the other side when you have things to fall back to, which we do in this particular case. And the reasoning is sound. Now if his bottom lane listened or bottom lane were already snowballing, Diana's going to be on the top side, then finishing the Gromp Wolves, going back to base, doing the red quadrant and doing the same exact gank, that would have been better because we go straight to the dragon afterwards, 2 sides of the same coin with different timing impacts. Now Diana shows up very briefly in mid lane vision and then moves back into her jungle. So what the Bel'Veth thinks is, hey, this is great, I have a lead, let me use this 3-0-1 advantage to kill her and take her red. Also now I have bottom lane prior, Morgana can rotate with me. The thing is that Diana wasn't thinking about such things and just went to a top side quadrant. She didn't think about using the red buff, she didn't think about potential invade, she just does things without thinking. And in this case, I think the Bel'Veth is overthinking it just a little bit. It would have been better just to, hey, start the red buff, pull it out, if they show up, make the fight, get the kill. Don't waste so much time waiting for them to show up to get the kill. Take the buff first. When they see it's not there, they typically don't go into the bush, which is when you can surprise them. And because of this, we do allow the Diana to get a free gank mid lane and a kill. Yes, we can collapse on her, yes, we can get the kill, but the Ahri will now rotate. We rely on a bottom lane to rotate. I don't think you always want to leave situations so severely and remove yourself from the fight. You know, even when you are low, you can go back in. We saw this on the Jarvan gameplay in the gameplay channel yesterday. There's always ways to get back in, but healing yourself up, going back into the fight, getting the coral to become true form, taking the dragon, all thumbs up in my book. Well played, but if we just did that red buff a little sooner and then realized she wasn't coming, we could have counter ganked mid lane, maybe saved the Yasuo. That then gives us the ability to take the Herald, to gank top lane, to fall back to red side, reset, gank bottom lane. Then we can do the dragon afterwards because there's no real rush for that. We do want the fishies though for tower destruction. And if you're any sort of good jungler, this kind of first 8, 9, 10 minutes should always give you the absolute best advantage to carry into the second part of the early game, into the mid game. I will link below videos that kind of harp on that and showcase exactly what you should do in those situations. But for this video, we are really just showcasing this early game strategy and how we can bring together flow to make sure we're still ganking the lanes more than the enemy jungler, we're still farming the jungle more than they are, and we are killing them and taking their stuff. Now in this game, we are on the blue side of the map and we can start bottom side. We can go red, wolves blue, and guess what? Kayn gets leash bottom side, he's starting on his red. What if Virkayu, the Kayn, was starting on the red side as he should and pathing down? Well again, you are Bel'Veth, you are any sort of meta jungler, just go red, Raptors, Krugs, and gank bottom lane. And if that bottom lane isn't gankable, just invade him on his blue once he sequences down. And all Kayns, all sorts of junglers like this will be sequencing down, you just invade them and kill them there. So you can reflex your clear as necessary. That's what we're kind of bringing through with this coaching with him. And of course, now that he's using it well and making the right reads, first blood on Diana. Almost first blood on Kayn, but at the very least, we did get his flash. Now here's where the coaching needs to go to the next level and we'll showcase some mistakes here. Obviously, we know that Kayn then is going to go to the bottom side to try get that bottom side scuttle, but he was chunked. So Bel'Veth says, well, why don't I drive my mid lane, create prior, and then go and gank bottom lane? Now what happens is it looks like she just doesn't see the Kayn misses his spells. We could have just turned and killed him, but instead we go to the bottom lane, we go fisting, we go fighting, we get very, very low, we use our Q mobility beautifully, we use our knock up beautifully to get that Q reset, and we space to survive, and then we can take the scuttle. But This play was significantly more risky. We don't want to say, hey, this was the best play, but I do love where his head is at in terms of denial of the enemy jungler, and then use that positioning in the river to gank a lane and keep him from getting those ganks himself. It's something that will work for 99% of ranks and really allows you to tilt junglers and tilt laners. Now in this particular case, as you start to get into your diamond MMRs and start to win a lot more, you will notice that enemy junglers will do the outside and roll significantly better. The Kayn knows you took that scuttle, and most likely will probably do your bottom side quadrant because you didn't get the kills necessary to get the full itemization you want at level 1, 2, 3, 4. As such, we decide to cut in to look for the scuttle. I think we don't even need to bother doing that. 99% the Kayn took that scuttle, which means we can just finish off the full second sequence by taking the wolves and taking the Grom. What would happen then is we would run into the Kayn, and we would be able to fight him once more. At this point, he only has tier, so he has no dramatic itemization advantage, worth noting when you press tab when you run into him. Instead though, we check the scuttle and quite a lot of comedy ensues as the Kayn is just counter jungling as the Bel'Veth is running around. Eventually she does run into him. She is at least able to get her wolf camp and go back to base to go and get that Noon Quiver. So the Kayn did a very good job keeping himself relevant, normalizing the CS, but the gank in our favor will allow our bottom lane to snowball. How can we now use that to snowball in a little bit of a different way than we did last game because we didn't get the kills? Go back to base, buy your Noon Quiver, leave the base. We know Kayn is on the top side. What does that mean for us? What's available for us? That's right, a free-for-all bottom lane gank out of base to the bottom lane. Excellent, we get something. Now we move into the river. Because we know the Kayn didn't really get any kills on the top side and most likely he's resetting for the blue quadrant, why would we invade here when it's dangerous? If our laners are resetting and we don't have the position or the power just to run in and kill everybody, just take the objective for free. We cannot do anything about it. We finish, we look mid lane, nothing, but at least we tried. Now we can fall back into our red side, get level 6, and then gank bottom lane again. And here's the thing, at this point it's 8 minutes, the Kayn has got nothing going, no objectives. He will do that blue quadrant and feel desperate to go ahead and make the gank. That's why the Bel'Veth actually going ahead and looping around into the red side and shadowing back to this counter gank is so powerful. Obviously she being Bel'Veth and having 1-0-2 means you should be able to win these fights pretty easily, and of course your bottom lane is way further ahead than theirs because of the investment. So when you don't get the kills on the enemy jungler early, you at least put them in a box. They can rattle around in the box and we're not going to open the box, but they can't leave it. Last game we actually opened the box, got on the box and said no, you don't even have the box. Some games that will happen, and some games this will happen. And of course this is only part 1 of the phase because now we're fed, we can do our Krugs, go back to base. We almost finished our Kraken Slayer. I might stay out to try and finish it, but I see top lane is coin flipping. I want to try and gank that in my favor. I know the Herald's a thing I really want as Bel'Veth. Just be careful not to overcommit. Just be careful to pay attention to prio. I preferred the first game we looked at because it had a much better flow and we ganked every lane a bit more equally. However, in the meta, sometimes random things will happen. It's about how you adapt to them. The point is using this simple sort of strategy and ideology of the early game, whatever jungler you're playing, it gives yourself an ability to get fed. And in the absolute worst case scenario, we are still able to get our laners fed, our bottom lane fed, and we can play around them, map control, CS denial, get objectives, and carry and win games. And this simple framework has honestly led to these 20+ wins, this huge win streak. It will only be on him to be consistent about it. It will be on him to stick to his champion pool, not play too many games, not get tilted, all of the typical things we say with climbing. You can really easily still lose games like this if you throw in on a discipline for the rest of the game or you're mentally tilted. So hopefully he can continue on the trend. We wish him all the best. Hopefully this serves you well and helps you. If you want to learn this for your own particular playstyle, Virkayu coaching on virkayu.gg. And if you want to know how to use this advantage in the early game to carry the rest of the game, click the video in the box on your top right.